Okay, so this is me in case I happen to not be standing in front of you. What I want to do is to talk about restorative practices as part of information for planning for the school as we move into the next few years. I want to do this by looking at 4 chunks. I want to define what it is, look at some international milestones, look at some of the CYW program milestones, and then make a modest proposal for hubs and certificates. By way of defining restorative practices, it's really an old idea with a new name. Its roots can be found in Aboriginal healing traditions as well as peacemaking responses to violent situations, often supported by faith communities. So it's a slice of a larger peacemaking pie. It also operates in the premise that conflict inflicts harm, and therefore individuals must accept responsibility for repairing the harm. But those harms should define the process. Conflicts and solutions should be owned by the participants and not primarily the state. So, restorative practices is growing into a social science. It's a relational approach to engage and work with others. It's evolved from a focus on justice and harm doing to encompass a broader view of relational practice. Therefore, in its application, it can be used to reduce crime, violence, and bullying. Used to develop social and emotional competencies, strengthen civil society and communities, provide effective leadership in organizations, restore relationships, and repair harm. Therefore, it is about voice, relationships, inclusion, high expectations, accountability, community ownership, and transformation. Looking at milestones, both internationally as well as Canadian, I want to look at legislation, research, colleges and universities, cities, global development, and post-secondary and graduate education. From a legislative focus, these are the areas where you can find restorative justice and restorative practices being integrated in terms of child protection and child welfare, youth justice, school discipline as an alternative to suspension. There's increasing applications in adult and community justice context. Increasingly, it's being used as part of college university discipline policy, and is believed by many that it can challenge the racially tainted pipeline to prison dynamic. Examples of countries that are utilizing it is New Zealand has been using it since 1985 as family group conferencing. Belgium has done similarly over the past 5 years. The United States is using it in terms of youth justice and education. Jamaica has integrated it into its government policy, as has Trinidad. It's also integrated in legislation in the UK and Northern Ireland. Canada's contribution actually has been quite significant in the restorative justice and peacemaking field. It's first to offer victim offender reconciliation programs. It has expertise in violent offense post-incarceration mediation. It is a leader in terms of Aboriginal practices of circle healing and justice processes, and offered the first youth restorative justice conference in 1974. In terms of legislation in the Canadian Ontario context, it's part of the Federal Youth Criminal Justice Act since 2002, and it's part of the Ontario Educational Safe and Caring Schools legislation, replacing the zero tolerance focus that preceded it. Many provinces and school boards have also taken up similar types of legislation across Canada. In terms of research, as some current examples, the U.S. in the Department of Justice through the RAND Corporation is doing cross comparison of 50 schools who are using and not using restorative practices. CASEL, the Center for Social Emotional Learning, did a meta-analysis of 207 studies, and it demonstrated that the focus on social emotional enhances academic outcomes. And ROCA, a community center outside of the Boston area working in 5 cities, did a qualitative analysis of their grassroots peacemaking circle process, which was focused on gang-involved traumatized youth. As a result of their successful utilization of the model, they were awarded a $27 million social impact bond to continue their work. In the US, I should say in the EU, they're looking at an effective economic European strategy for the diffusion of restorative justice. The UK and Northern Ireland have been exploring and mapping the uses of restorative practices, looking at recidivism and looking at victim satisfaction. In Canada, there's a number of areas where research is currently being undertaken. There's a tri-university project looking at restorative justice education in Ontario. In Nova Scotia, they're looking at their University Community Research Alliance through a SHIRT grant. The Hollow Water First Nations holistic healing process has been analyzed and assessed from a cost-benefit analysis point of view. In terms of colleges and universities, there's a number of initiatives underway. The University of Vermont undertook to train all its residential advisors and student affairs staff, and they're currently consulting to other colleges and universities who want to undertake a similar type of project. The University of Syracuse is a leader in research, training, and application of restorative practices for on-campus discipline. In terms of cities around the world, there's some interesting developments. Hull, England undertook to train 25,000 frontline staff in restorative practices and declared itself the first restorative city. Detroit states its aspiration to become a restorative city. And similarly, city in New Zealand is undertaking to become the first restorative city in New Zealand. In terms of global development, there's a number of milestones. The International Institute for Restorative Practices, based in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, now has affiliates in Canada, Australia, UK, and Ireland, which is now becoming IIRP Europe. Also affiliates in Hungary, Latin America, and Singapore. New Zealand is reinvigorating and standardizing their model of family group conferencing for child welfare and youth justice situations. And then there's strong uptake in countries such as Jamaica, Trinidad, Singapore, and Brazil. There's also a variety of other consortiums that exist around the world in the US, Europe, and also Australia and New Zealand. In terms of post-secondary and graduate education, it's offered at the International Institute as a master's program. There's a center at Simon Fraser University, and in Central and Eastern Mennonite University, they respectively have schools of peace building. In terms of the Child and Youth Work Program, there's a number of milestones to consider in terms of the curriculum, training, research, student enhancement, and international placements. In terms of the curriculum itself, it's one of 4 pillars that anchor the curriculum. It's the basis for a third-year course in community interventions and peacemaking circles. It's the basis of our progressive discipline and relational approach to student engagement, and we also offer advanced skills training and conferencing. In terms of training and workshops, we've offered 21 2-day certificate workshops. These were offered to our students, grads, and agency partners, and it's expanded to include many community service students and faculty. And also, it has been offered as part of larger initiatives with various school boards around the GTA as they begin to implement restorative justice and practices into their progressive discipline framework. Research. We've conducted a 2-year demonstration project with kids under 12, participated as part of a steering committee for a hosting project with the Ontario Multi-Faith community. We're a training partner with the My Regent Park project, focusing on gang-involved youth, and are currently a community partner with the Tri-University investigation of restorative justice in education in the integration of restorative practices into the CYW curriculum has enhanced student roles in terms of their placements, in terms of projects they can undertake over and above their placements. It's supported them taking on roles as presenters provincially, nationally, and internationally, and also supported them taking on roles in the Social Justice Conference, which is offered every 2 years to grade 11s and 12s. In fact, the last conference saw 20 community service students take on roles as workshop presenters. In terms of international placements, it served as a basis for exploring placements in Jamaica with a restorative focus. It was a basis for an entry point for introductions to particular agencies. Currently in Jamaica, there's 8 restorative justice centers. There's a dispute resolution. So utilizing the experiences to date, this could be integrated and bundled in a way to create a hub for restorative practices. These are some of the components of what would constitute a hub. We could continue with training and workshops. These could be expanded to develop certificates in a variety of different topic areas. We would be able to undertake more robust and continuous research. We could develop programs. We could continue our focus on presentations, but these could be translated into publications. We could develop resources to support program and partnership development. We could undertake different projects that relate to the high skills majors in the high schools in the GTA. A number of high schools have designated themselves as focusing in on not-for-profit and community justice. This could be a support to a restorative campus and residents offering training, student placements, and consultation. And it would support our involvement in international placements. There are a number of benefits in these areas that a hub would support. It would support student engagement through project learning, would enhance our recruitment in high schools by raising our profile. It would expand our ability and capacity to sustain initiatives. We would be able to participate in creating knowledge and transmitting it. We would garner recognition through an identifiable hub in restorative practices. We'd be able to utilize our own assets, both students and opportunities within the college. We would be able to develop partners and enhance those partnerships. It would enhance student roles who would go beyond traditional conventional student roles. We would support the development of global citizens. And lastly, we can generate revenue in a number of contexts through certificate and workshop offerings. It also supports 21st century skill development. The objective of 21st century learning is to build capacity in areas that promote a resilient society. These are some of the skill areas that support 21st century learning and vocational skills. So a sample certificate I bundled in a couple of ways where it could be offered by topic and day or as a continuous certificate. So day 1 and 2 would focus in on core restorative principles, values, and practices. Day 3 would focus on restorative circles, utilizing principle skills and their applications. Day 4 would look at restorative conferencing for more formal and complex situations. And day 6 would look at addressing trauma and adversity through utilizing compassionate witnessing, listening, and circle processes. These could be offered as separate day 1 and 2 workshops or as a full certificate. There are also other areas that could be given consideration to provide certificate and education around. Examples would include restorative parenting, family engagement, building restorative teams, restorative leadership, utilizing restorative arts and activities as just some examples, and there could be countless others. There are a number of requirements that would allow this to happen. They have to do with room, dedicating a room the size of 560E. Also, we need to look at staff time in terms of SWIFT time, succession plan, and secondments, utilizing expertise within community services, and also look at cross-department funding between community services and the residents. And someone should pay me to come back the last week in August.